Good morning. Welcome to the home of Unitarian Universalism in Central Washington. My name is Leigh Pobst, and I'm delighted to be your celebrant this morning, along with our worship leader, Reverend Perchlik. If you are a visitor today, we are so glad you are here. We welcome every person of goodwill, just as you are, whatever your religious background or beliefs. No matter what you look like or whom you love, you are welcome here. We invite everyone to join us for coffee, treats, and conversation after the service. And welcome to the folks on Zoom. You'll find the order of your service and the song lyrics in the chat. Linnea Shannon is our Zoom host today. And now, please turn around and wave to the people on Zoom. Please take a moment and greet those around you, especially someone you don't know well. For our announcements, there's an Interfaith Justice Coalition meeting today at 1:30 at the Sunny Slope Church. And the 22nd of February, there's a circle supper at Chris Rader's house. So RSVP to her if you are able to attend. As you know, our building and our homes are located on the ancestral homeland of the Pequosa. We speak this land acknowledgement today as an intentional recognition of the deep bond of a people for their land. In the words of elder and great-grandmother Mary Lyons of the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe, when we talk about land, land is part of who we are. It's a mixture of our blood, our past, our current, and our future. We carry our ancestors in us, and they're around us, as you all do. Since time immemorial, the Pequosa have lived here in this valley, making a vibrant way of life and a rich culture from the land. We acknowledge that their land, like that of so many other First Nations in this country, was taken because the U.S. government broke treaty obligations and allowed white colonizers to settle on Pequosa homeland. The Pequosa still live here, still practice their cultural traditions, and are still working to have those treaty obligations fulfilled. Aho. Now let's rise in body and spirit to sing our opening song, For All That Is Our Life, hymn number 128.
Seated. I call you to worship with these words, The Bright Thread of Hope by Reverend Gretchen, Reverend Gretchen Haley. There's too much beauty in this world to give up on it yet. And it is always too soon to surrender to cynicism, fear. Bring your doubt, your skepticism, your downright confusion, even your bitterness, and in the midst of these, in the center, wrap your tender fingers around the bright thread of hope. Feed in your heart that still steady hunger for something more, the vision we glimpse every day in the rising sun across the foothills, the light that spreads across the face of the one we love, the look of knowing all there is to know and still loving life, loving us. Loving life just as it is and us just as we are. For this hour, we come to celebrate, to praise, to give thanks, to refuse to give up, to steady ourselves, affirm all of us together as keeper of that bright thread of hope and brave builders of the still possible world.
In UU congregations around the world, the chalice and flame symbolize people gathering together in loving community and inspiration. If you at home have your chalice with you, please join us now in lighting it. Here in the sanctuary, we will speak these lighting words printed on the screen and in your bulletin. We gather together as a people of faith, guided by love, as bright as the flame in our chalice. We light the chalice to make visible the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. Want to form an arch, and we can sing. Oh, go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. Now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share.
And now the boring grown-up readings. First, ancient wisdom comes from Jewish tradition, Psalm 37, and another line from 147. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and God's ears are attentive to their crying. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. God delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. God determines the numbers of the stars and calls them each by name. Great is our Lord and mighty in power, with understanding that has no limit. Great ancient reading of hope. And then Rumi, the mystic, Sufi mystic, wonderful poet, who wrote at the end of the Middle Ages, or that medieval period. This little piece: heartsick, heartbroken, to know love is to know pain. What could be more common? Even so, each broken heart is so singular that with it we probe the divine. And then these words from Kate Winslet, an actress, famous actress who plays wonderfully complex female characters. She was married to the famous director, Sam Mendes. They got married in 2003 and then broke up and divorced. Broke up in 2010 and divorced in 2011. And she was talking about that experience and how difficult it was to move beyond it, how broken her heart felt that so soon after it began, it had ended. And then she said, I now think heartbreak is something you learn to live with, as opposed to something you learn to forget and get over. So with those words of wisdom, raising up the theme of heartbreak and healing, we now move into a time of sharing and honoring. We hold this time always in our worship, build deeper community, to share things about which we only have been given permission to share, events of honoring things that we need to honor, whether they are good or painful, and things we need to remember. For each person who comes forward, you can speak into the microphone. I'll have the microphone on. Remember to keep it close to your mouth. The closer you are, the louder people can hear you. And let us hold each other. And then we have candles to light. We have a few candles. If there's any other need, we'll have time for both spoken and then silent time. I bring words about heartbreak and thriving beyond. About 15 years ago, country singer Billy Ray Cyrus sang to his lover who was leaving him. He said, "Go ahead, tell anyone about the breakup, but," he insisted, "don't tell my heart, my achy, breaky heart. I just don't think he'd understand. And if you tell my heart, my achy, breaky heart, he might blow up and kill this man." Ooh. In mood, it is a happy song, but the gladness is driven all by denial and grief. I've encountered broken hearts, many. I've known people who did not know if they could survive the disaster that broke their heart. Often they survive, sometimes like the girl in the book that Leigh shared today. Their heart in a jar. They cannot believe what Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote a century ago, 2 centuries ago. "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." Eventually, she grasps the thread of hope. I found it very moving. First time Leigh shared, I looked up the book and read the story when the young woman finds the little girl just like she was, full of wonder and curiosity about herself and the world. And she opens the jar and returns her heart to its original place. And so the chair was not so empty anymore. I have found that the human heart, the human soul, the human spirit can be very resilient if our hearts remain connected to what is both sweet and enduring. And there are good things that endure always, no matter what. Maybe not in the moment, maybe not right in one place or in the person, but still there. Life and love, joy and communion can endure and thrive through many heartbreaks. Each of us may not only survive after loss and destruction, but thrive beyond it. One source of broken hearts is death, especially the death of one we love or of our own impending death. Yet even death has its limits. In the greater circle of life, always something endures. Perhaps the interpretation of Buddhism's 4 noble truths is there is heartbreak. So there's just suffering, there's heartbreak. Heartbreak is caused by our desiring and longing, but you can thrive beyond heartbreak, free of it. Its weight, its shackles. And you can become free by following the path of sweetness and love in this life. So today we're holding up sweetness, goodness, care, commitment. I heard people speaking about friendships that have endured and people who continue to do good things and create great parties despite all that could break your heart. There are, of course, very personal heartbreaks. And often when we talk about heartbreak, it's very personal, but often it can be very collective. It was striking watching the Grammys, which was all underpinned by a desire to raise money for the people who had lost everything in fires in Southern California. And it created this strange mood in which there was this sadness of people losing everything. And then people showing caring and love and trying to move beyond that disaster. When I came across that quote from Kate Winslet, it's interesting, when you do searches for quotes, you still get a lot of males who were quoted and on the internet. It's just the way we are. And so I was looking specifically for a female, and I noticed Kate Winslet, knew she was identified as female, where she talked about heartbreak is not something that we just get past or we get beyond or we forget. It always has to be something that changes who we are, that we live with, learn how to live with the fact that these losses will happen and disasters will happen. and then try to fight against them. The heartbreak of the war in Gaza, all the death, all the destruction. And then certain people making really stupid, glib comments about Gaza. And our need to live with that pain, acknowledge that pain. Some of the collective sources of heartbreak are war, obviously. Many people hurt, destroyed, ruined. Other people survive through it. I remember listening to an article about Canadian children and how they dealt with disasters in World War II and British children. And there were differences, People will respond in different ways. But I encourage you to think not only about the individual ways, but collective ways. I mentioned Native American people. I'm talking about heartbreak. Entire ways of being, millions of, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Disaster, ruin, degradation, denial, over and over and over. I was impressed by the movie Emilia Perez. Emilia Perez is about a person who caused terrible heartbreak by leading a drug cartel. But she has always known she was a woman. And so she takes her wealth and she uses that to claim the life that she always wanted to live. Not of this angry man and a head of a drug cartel killing people, but trying to love others and heal. Emilia Perez, she's living her best life. She's helping people who lost family members due to drug violence, cartel violence, finding their bodies, trying to help people heal. But as the doctor told her when she was about preparing for her transition, her physical transition, he said, you can change the outside, but you cannot change the inside. And she still has flaws, and it causes the death of people around her and her own death. But in the end, she is honored for all the healing and all the love she was able to embody, that she was able to claim, all the different lives she helped heal. She's embodied in a figure almost like the Virgin of Guadalupe, whose son was killed by an unjust criminal justice system. Here's this woman seeking love, trying to heal other people, never being completely healed herself, and yet still being the source of love and sweetness and being honored in her death, celebrated. It's a good movie in that sense. Hard movie in some ways. The Unitarian Universalist Association mission statement includes the value of generosity, and we're holding up generosity this month. What we say about generosity is we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. So the first element, gratitude, is about appreciating the present and the past. But the word hope pulls that gratitude into the future. The idea is generosity is one part of our larger vision of all the love and justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependent that we are nurturing in the world. So the second and third statements about generosity tell us that it will move us. Generosity will move us towards richer commitment and deeper relationships. We say, we covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, our presence, and our resources. And then second, our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Our values link well with the mission statement of the Women's Resource Center that we're affirming today. They say they want to provide individuals and families experiencing poverty and homelessness with the housing and supportive services they need to be part of a healthy, diverse community. Becoming homeless, whether from a fire or from economic forces, is always a source of heartbreak for individuals and families, but can also be a source of sweetness if there are people who care and are generous. When I talk about heartbreak, when I thought about heartbreak, I thought about my own father. My grandfather died at age 52, cancer. My father was 14 years old. And he, in some ways, steeled himself to live. His mother did a good job of raising her 4 children into adulthood and going on to create families. And she had layers and layers of family around her. Lived up in Cleveland. But then my father met a brilliant young woman, bright, pretty, vivacious young woman in Mexico when he was living in Colorado at the time. And she was living in Vancouver, British Columbia. And the two of them met in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico. And they had a quick relationship over letters and 1 or 2 visits, and then they decided to get married. And I asked my mother many years later, when was the first time that you realized there was a problem with your marriage? And she said, the wedding night. It started early. But they were kind people and respectful people and disciplined people. So we didn't see a lot of hurt or anger or dissent in our childhood. And my brothers and sisters and I had great childhoods, so we were raised well, but there was always this emptiness. There's always a distance. My father especially was somewhat distant emotionally. There were moments where I could connect with him, but it was hard for him. And then when he turned 52, which was the age his father had died of cancer, and he wasn't sick, and he wasn't dead, he decided to do something about adding more sweetness and joy and relationships in his life. He'd always been involved in social justice, always been involved in trying to heal and help the people who are suffering in this world. He had showed me that that's how one lives. But part of my longing for community, my desire to serve community, create communities like this, comes from the fact that I felt often alone and lonely and independent as a child, and I wanted to be with others who were connecting with others. And so one of the first things my father started doing was traveling around the world. He went as far as Peru to Sichuan, China, to Machu Picchu in Peru and Sichuan province in China. And then he started making new friendships. He started dating. He went on moved out to his own house and got dogs. We never had dogs or pets when we were children. He loved his dogs. He loved his life. He filled his life with joy and possibilities and new connections. He ended up getting cancer also. He ended up dying 2 weeks after his 60th birthday. But I was able to visit him often before he died. And I could tell that he loved his life. He loved his the girlfriend who was living with him and nurtured him and helped him through his illness. He wasn't alone, but connected and happy and full of life. Today, we represent what lifts us beyond heartbreak. Today, we represent what helps us heal from heartbreak with chocolate. You may know that the cocoa industry is a highly consolidated one. There's only 4 primary companies controlling 90% of the chocolate market. Most of the cocoa that we eat, if we eat cocoa, comes from Africa, a country that has experienced a lot of suffering caused by other people and heartbreak. But our chocolate today is from Equal Exchange. Equal Exchange is a company that builds long-term trade partnerships that are economically just and environmentally sound. They want to foster mutually beneficial relationships between the farmers and their workers, between the farmers and their consumers. They want to demonstrate how fair trade is more than just equitable financial exchange, but democratic and able to create a sustainable world. For we know, as we see climate change destroying so many things, and our hearts being stressed and hurt by these destructions, there are people who are working to make a more sustainable world. Equal Exchange works with smallholder farmers who are proud of their work and want to sell organic cacao for delicious chocolate through the fair system, free of child labor, free of degrading labor practices, free of environmentally destructive habits, and still come up with the sweetness of chocolate. Now, for those who can't eat sugar or chocolate, we do have alternatives. We have sugar-free Werther's original. So if you're not into chocolate or your body doesn't like it, you have the Werther's. Oh, and we also have the Hershey's is a sugar-free version of chocolate. So there is chocolate, but it's sugar-free, just in case. All the rest of you will get now a piece of chocolate. And what I've asked the greeters to do is to pass the baskets. And when you get the chocolate, keep it in the wrapper for a moment. And we're going to all do this together. We're going to eat chocolate together. So you got to wait. All right? So go ahead, pass them out. And make sure you get one or two up here. I didn't grab one earlier. Thank you, Leigh. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, everybody wait. You can open it up, but only if it doesn't melt all over your hands. So it's better to keep it in the wrapper. Now, this idea of chocolate communion is something I started long ago when mindfulness was starting to grow in our culture. And so I'll lead you in that for a while. But right now, just have it out. And I want you to notice the chocolate. So we're going slowly. So you got to be patient. Part of healing sometimes is being patient. You have to live with the pain. You have to live with the hurt. And that's hard to wait. You want it to just go away right away. But you gotta wait. Just like you gotta wait for chocolate. Just take a piece of chocolate. And then when we all have one, then I'll ask you to open it up. I already kind of opened mine a little bit. And oftentimes when we get a piece of candy, we'll take the wrapper off quickly and then we'll just pop it in our mouths. So I'm asking you to be to intentionally be mindful about how precious this is. Cocoa beans. Equal Exchange gets almost all their cocoa from South America, not from African companies, though they have started to partner with a fair trade company or communities. Their communities are just, small holdings and fair trade. So this chocolate has gone through a great journey. It's been created. Now I want you to notice its smell, if you can smell it. Often we don't notice the smell. We just go straight to the flavor. Let's get to smell it. And notice if you take it out of the wrapper, how it feels. You can feel the texture of it. You can feel if it melts quickly in your hand or not. It's a little cool in here, so it probably doesn't. And then when you're ready, you can put in a small piece or the whole piece into your mouth and feel the textures. First, feel the texture on your tongue, and then on your teeth, and notice the flavors. Different parts of your tongue taste different things at different intensities. See if you can notice that at all. Be aware of the chocolate melting and feeding your body with the sweetness of sugar. Cocoa by itself has a bitterness. You might taste that. The Dutch were the first to really get intense about adding sugar to the cocoa, making it sweet. And it's that sweetness, richness that is central to cocoa. A poet, a translator, and a Buddhist priest named Norman Fisher said, "In the full intensity of the present moment, there is never anything to fear. There is only something to deal with." It's a subtle point, but it's absolutely true. The fear I experience now is not really based in the moment. I am afraid of what is going to happen. This is what the Buddha realized. If you could be in the radical present moment fully and not lost in the past, the pain fades and softens, and you can be free. Let us always nurture sweetness and kindness. Spread love. Spread generosity, spread kindness, and we will turn back all the damage that happens over and over, all the broken hearts. And now we're going to talk about healing sweetness. We're now going to talk about healing and sharing our generosity and our abundance with first Laura Mrachek. Oh, she's right there. And then our friend from the Women's Resource Center.
So I am part of your social justice team, and hopefully you've noticed that we redid the bulletin board, so there's more information and maybe some of the logic behind, what we do with you and for you, and always inviting folks to participate or to volunteer. Women's Resource Center is one of my favorite charities. I've been giving to them for a long time, and they have grown in their mission and their capacity. Probably always never enough, but they're doing a great job and they're very unique, and so we're welcoming Bill Elderbach to be with us this morning to explain a little bit about what makes Women's Resource such a unique group. And I'm just going to share the mission that they have. It says, Women's Resource Center envisions a world in which all individuals and families have safe, decent, affordable, and accessible housing, plus other necessities of life, in an environment which honors diversity, promotes education and self-esteem, and encourages mutual respect. So that group, I believe, is really in complete alignment with our social justice mission and with the tenets of Unitarian Universalist beliefs. So Bill, come on up. He's got some great personal experiences to share.
Oh, good morning. I'm William Bilderback. I'm the Director of Operations for the Women's Resource Center, also known as WRC Housing and Supportive Services. Thank you for having me today, and thank you for doing this Pass the Plate for our organization. We appreciate everybody in the community and all the resources that we can get. I'll start by talking a little bit about our programs. We have several programs, one of them being Parkside and Miller Park. It's a permanent supportive housing program that we have over here on Kashmir and Marsh Street. We have a total of 36 units where we house chronically homeless individuals with disabilities. The only difference between the two is Parkside requires a mental health diagnosis and Miller Park just requires any disability. And if you're wondering what chronically homeless is, it's for people that have experienced homelessness for 12 consecutive months or 4 or more times in the last 3 years, adding up to a year or more. Very high success rate out there with very little turnover. Another program we have is the Landlord-Tenant Liaison Program. It's where we partner with other agencies as well as our internal rental assistance program to help people experiencing homelessness find rentals in the community and help them sustain them. We help them with wraparound case management services, anything from helping them find a job to getting on disability to just anything to help them be self-sufficient, because there's so many things that a lot of folks take for granted in life. And some of it's just how to live. Some people have never had a rental before. Some people have never had a job before. And depending on where they came from in life and their support system and the people around them, anybody is just one tragedy or one circumstance away from experiencing homelessness, whether it be, the loss of a job or, a stay-at-home mom whose husband is the primary worker in the family and, a death in the family, and all of a sudden they don't know how to live. And so we provide the case management and we just do whatever it takes to keep them housed. The program that we're probably the most well-known for would be the Bruce Transitional Housing on the corner of Palouse and Mission Street. We have 40 rooms there, plus 2 ADA rooms. We're unique in one way that we are the only shelter in town that can keep families together. Regardless of gender, regardless of age, anybody is welcome at the Bruce. There's a lot of services in town for females with children, and they can stay together. There's not a lot of places where you can go for a single dad with kids or a couple with kids without having to split up. Some of the resources in town will allow children, but once a male gets to the age 13, they're not welcome anymore for their own reasons. And so the Bruce is very unique, is we can keep families together, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are. I myself lived at the Bruce back in 2015. My wife lived at the Bruce in 2016. We have a staff that is made up of not just folks with education backgrounds, but as well as lived experience. We have a very diverse staff in that we have experienced some of the things that we are helping people navigate on a daily basis. And we take a lot of pride in that, and I'm very grateful to be doing what we do. So that's the gist of it. I'll stick around, and if afterwards, if anybody wants to ask a few questions, I'm an open book. Would love to share it with anything that you guys have or you're wondering about. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to mention that all unmarked cash will go to the Women's Resource Center. And if you write a check and want it to go to the Women's Resource Center, please make it out to COF and put "Share the Plate" in the memo line. The offering is an ancient element of worship. The act of giving, regardless of amount, is a spiritual practice that expresses our thankfulness and generosity. Joyfully sharing our gifts and strengths in service to the greater good is one way we create the beloved community. We will now receive the offering. We are blessed by your generosity. May your gifts make a difference in our community through the ministries of this church. And now let's rise in body or in spirit to sing our closing song, Turn, Turn, Turn.
As we go into this week with Valentine's, let us always remember love. May love nurture us. May we share it generously, and may it help us heal from all the heartbreak of life. So may it be.
And now, as we extinguish our chalice, please join me in saying the words printed in your bulletin or on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and embody in our lives until we are together again. And our tradition is to join hands in a circle and sing once more together.